Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
And welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. I'm your host, Jill Hart, and with us today is a dear friend of mine from very long ago named Jeff Morton. And Jeff is also a podcast host of the podcast, Let's Talk About It. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hey, thank you, Jill. Pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation. It's been good to reconnect as well.
It is really good to reconnect. And full disclosure, we met through my Torah observance days, which the listeners all pretty much know or should know by now that I deconverted a few years ago. And it's really the reason why I started the podcast was my deconversion process and finding hope in the world, because I was feeling like the world was ending and there was no hope. And what's the point?
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest thing that I appreciate about everything is just hope. So I have this fantastic love for people, and for me, it was more of a freedom as opposed to a deconstruct. Once I realized that a lot of the Torah-based ministries were, in my opinion, a church service with the tallit draped over them, and it was just, everybody wanted to be a first century Jew, and I was like, there's got to be a way that this has, it just became another religious system to me. Although I do absolutely believe in a lot of what I learned, I just don't see it from a religious purview anymore. And so I thought, why don't we just make a podcast about people and appreciate people? And that's what Let's Talk About it's all about, really, Joe.
Yeah, and giving people a platform to share what they're doing, because everybody's doing something really amazing out there in the world.
That was the heart of why I did what I did. You see the podcast folks out there, they bring the high-powered guests and the political people, the famous people. And I thought, where's the average person? Where's the guy or the woman who is making a difference in the life of somebody else, or has a story to tell that we can all kind of agree with? Where are those people in the podcast world? And so Let's Talk About It is it's my segue away from all of the reasons everybody wants to be in front of a camera or everybody has something. Well, let's just appreciate the people who actually do have something to say or have made a difference in somebody's life. And it could be your neighbor. It could be the guy at the grocery store. It could be the woman who's taking care of 5 kids for a family. Let's talk about that person without all of the stuff, because they're just people. They're just people. And let's appreciate one another. Really, that's the heart of Let's Talk About It. I really do mean that.
I love that. And it's the heart of the New World Order, in my opinion, also, in that we're all gifted with something and we're all special. It's not like just because you're famous for 15 minutes for doing something. And a lot of times people are famous for doing things that aren't all that nice in the grand scheme of things. Whereas everybody has something beautiful that they're doing or have done or are contributing to making the world a better place, even if it's just, they pick up after their dog when they take their dog for a walk. I mean, that's something that's somebody appreciates that.
I was in a, well, go ahead and finish your statement. I don't
No,
want to
go ahead.
interrupt it. I was talking to a person yesterday, and I happened to be in a restaurant, and there was a senior gentleman sitting at the table behind us, and he said, I don't mean to interrupt your conversation, but he chimed in on a couple of things we were talking about. I ended up sitting there talking with this 85-year-old man who had a fascinating story to tell and unbelievable artwork. I thought I was looking at photographs and they were pencil drawings. And I thought, this is the kind of thing I wanted. I'm invited him to be on my show. He's not connected to the internet. He doesn't have, he's not one of those people. He's from that generation. He said, well, I have to do it in person because I'm not good at the electronic. Invite you over to the house for dinner. These 85-year-olds, these 80-year-olds, these 90-year-old people, they have a story to tell. And if you're willing to sit down and listen for 5 minutes, which this generation doesn't really do that, we kind of throw the elderly away, in my opinion. Not all. But I was fascinated by his story, and I'm always intrigued when somebody, the average person, can get my attention because they have a story to tell. I just love it. I love people. If you're trying to cut my head off, I don't love you. Okay, I don't want to know you. But if you are just a person trying to survive, put food on the table, raise your kids, be a father, be a husband, make a difference in your community, and it's worthwhile to talk about. Jill, I drive through cities and I look at what we've accomplished. I see these towering skyscrapers. Or then I drive around and I see neighborhoods and I see people and I go, look at what we are capable. Does anybody in this day and age celebrate the capability of just the average person? So I created this podcast, and I'm finding out that most people don't care about the average person. Well, I do. And so with a growing audience, I started this thing less than a year ago. I care about that average person. And if they want to come on and talk about their lives or something they're doing in their lives, that's what Let's Talk About It is. I wanted to name it Let's Talk About You. In fact, it is Let's Talk About You on Spotify because the name was already taken. But there's a whole lot of shows out there, podcasts they're called Let's Talk About It. So I didn't even think about that when I named it. But I didn't change the name because my show is about talking about you. You're the it. So come on and talk about it. Now, there's certain things that I'm not really inclined to have on the broadcast. That's my personal preference. I mean, if you want to cut my head off, please don't send me an email to be on my podcast. I don't want to know you. But I'm open to just about everything that is available in the lives of people that they want to talk about. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, you don't have to spend time with people that don't feel good to be around. And I think those people are,
and there's enough of them.
yeah. Yeah.
Life is a celebration to me, and it shouldn't be a depressing end of the world kind of thing like what you mentioned earlier. It shouldn't be doom and gloom. It shouldn't. Life is a celebration. It's like a gift. I always tell people, Joe, thank God I'm not a rock under somebody's porch.
Right.
Because there's no life in that. I mean, unless somebody picks me up and throws me in the water, I'm going to be that rock under the porch. And I just don't think that's, thank God. I mean, really, thank God. I'm not an inanimate object that has no voice, no thought, no process, and that I can interact with the people that I share this particular time with. I think it's a beautiful thing. I really do.
I love that we can connect with people all over the world in a space that doesn't even exist.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think, you know, to talk to I have people call me from India It's just 3 o'clock in the morning. I've had more than a few people call me from the other side of the world, and I'm asleep. But I get up and I talk to them. Uh, I think I think that's kind of cool, but not always. Not always. But I agree with you to have this technology and to be able to talk to people all over the world. I get emails from all over the world, and I've even had to Google decipher some because I didn't know what they were talking about. But I think the technology brings us closer if we allow it to do that, as opposed to push us apart. And I think there's too much of that going on.
I do too. And just the ability to be able to connect with people from so many different places. I remember when I was young, I must have been maybe 10 or 11. We lived in Japan at the time and we went to a museum and they had what they called a visiphone, which was basically Zoom. And we'd stood on either side of this board, but we could see each other on the screen. And I always remember that when Zoom first came out, it's like, it's here, but I can talk with people from far away and see what they look like, which is kind of cool.
I have people that are apprehensive. They say, "Well, I don't really feel feel." In fact, one particular person, her podcast, she did a show with me. She said, I don't feel, good enough to do this." And I said, "Well, what does that have to do with anything? Do you have a story to tell?" She said, "Yes." Well, she wrote a book, and the story she told on the podcast was compelling, very difficult, and it struck a chord with me because she was telling about the abuse and the things that she went through as a little girl. And I think for the first time in my life, I had never really thought about that kind of abuse from the perspective of a female who's sharing it. You know, I never, I was able to put myself in her shoes and go, wow, I've never thought about being a girl going through this at 12 or 13 years of age. And it was one of my most popular shows to this very day. So I'm like, she didn't realize that her story was compelling, and she had this kind of mindset that maybe I'm not good enough to do this. Well, it was to me, it was therapeutic what she had to offer. So, and that's the thing about podcasting. You never really know um how impactful somebody's story is going to be or how it might affect somebody's life. And I think, like you, Joe, everybody's got something to share. And I think I can't count how many times somebody's called me having listened to my podcast or seen something I posted, and they go, that just made a huge difference. Thank you for this. I get that all the time, actually, particularly from Facebook. I'm trying to learn Instagram, kind of, sort of, but Facebook has been a place that I have parked my world for a while now. Obviously, I'm looking for other places to do what I do. YouTube's banned me a few times. They shadow ban me. So, I mean, hey, Jill,
You're not anybody if you haven't been banned from Facebook or YouTube.
well, here's my category, okay? I'm a biblical believer, but not a church believer. I am conservative in my way of thinking about things, not and I wrote a book called Uncoloring Race, so I'm not racially inclined. I'm not involved in the racial identities. I'm just a guy who has a particular position in the way I think, and I don't think I need to go to church to make that point. I don't think I need to go stand in front of a black audience and say, "Hey, I've never been black and proud. I was black and poor," as my mother used to say all the time. I, I'm an American citizen who just believes in the freedoms that we have and the growth of this nation. And I just see life as being something to appreciate. And when you start getting into all these different things, then you,
designed to divide us,
yeah,
because
absolutely, that's what
that's
they
the
do.
only goal, is just to make us angry with each other when there's nothing to be angry about. I mean,
I, I did
it's
a,
not that there aren't situations, and I'm going to bring this up because I do know people who have been affected by things like being pulled over by police officers, and because of their color, they
yeah,
fear for themselves. That's wrong. And it should not exist. And I feel very strongly about that, but you can't, when you start doing all this race stuff, I think it just makes that kind of problem much worse.
well, you said it best. It's to divide. I've been pulled over by cops who were idiots. And so I look at the police in general and I go, thank God we got police. But every once in a while, I got an idiot. I've had neighbors who were idiots. I have family members who are idiots. There's an idiot everywhere you look. So
They're everywhere.
I find that, because of where we are today, it's
Mhm.
easier to not lower myself to idiocy because of my own self-respect. So when I'm dealing with that type of person, that's their issue. I don't have to adopt it. The love of people is much more rewarding than
Yes,
to
it
be
is.
caught up in stupid. I call it caught up in stupid. I don't want to do stupid. I don't want to be in your life doing stupid, and I don't want you in my life doing stupid. And so I look for the person and the individual who's not a part of all that, you know? And to me, I mean, that's really the joy of humanity is coming together, not celebrating stupid.
Yeah.
I wrote the book Uncoloring Race, and the only reason why I didn't call it Uncoloring Stupid was because I didn't want it to be in your face kind of thing. But while I'm
I
writing the
like that name,
book,
actually. I want to re-release it.
well, I wrote another book and I didn't publish it. It's called Politically Incorrect on Purpose.
Mhm.
And it was so hard when I reread the manuscript a couple of times. I went, I can't put this out there. This is just adding to the vision. So I never published the book. But
Was
doing the
it
pod,
cathartic to write it?
it was when I wrote that book, I was pissed off, to be honest with you, if you want to know the
Okay.
truth. I was so sick of the race, the all this stuff, all these words that we had to say or couldn't say, and all these different things. And I'm like, can't we just be neighborly? Can't we have a little civility? Do we have to say, well, you can't say that? Well, I got kicked off of a website because I pronounced the name wrong. And they kicked me off the website because I refused it's like, are you kidding me? Who's got time for this? So I was like, okay, kick me off. I'm better off for it. We'll go down the road. It just doesn't make any sense to me to not allow a person, if you're going to allow a person in your life, allow them in your life. Okay. Allow them to be whoever they are in your life. Um, if it gets to the point to where that's not a good thing, it's not a healthy thing, then you have a choice to make. But don't prejudge them at the gate. You know, I have there's a particular person, he's brilliant. He's of the LGBT community. I'm not necessarily a fan of the LGBT mindset when it's forced on me. This guy, I love this guy. I absolutely love this guy. And whatever his life is like behind whatever it is, that's his business. But he's a brilliant person. And that should be the first thing we see in
Yes.
people. And I just believe that. However, that's a hard point to get across if you're pigeoned into a particular um, oh, you'd be surprised. I've been called Uncle Tom, I've been called Oreo, I've been called all these names. The one thing I haven't been called is by my first name. And I don't have time for people who can't. I guess what I'm trying to say, Jill, is I have enough self-respect to where your disrespect doesn't bother me. I don't let it bother me. And I open my life up to people. That's why I do the podcast. So if it gets too lulu and woo woo woo, then probably you're not a good candidate on my podcast. But believe you me, I'm going to be the one to make that decision. It's my podcast. Okay. But everybody's welcome. Everybody's invited until you're uninvited. That's kind of how I look at it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Your name means traveler.
No, I didn't know that.
My husband and my son and my father-in-law are all Jeffries.
Oh, you're kidding. Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You should feel right at home.
I do. I'm just like, another Jeff in my life. I like Jeffs.
Well, you know what I found out? I'm going to steer back to the podcast. I did a podcast with a biblical scholar.
Mhm.
We had 10,000 listeners. I mean, it was huge. Um, then I decided to do this. I've been doing this, Jill, for a while now. I started with a radio show on Salem Communication down in Seattle. Had to drive to Seattle every Sunday to do my show. And they wouldn't tell me what my listenership was, which I thought was odd. But the cost to do this, people were sponsoring me to do this show. I only found out after I decided not to do the show because I felt guilty with people spending that much of their money to put me on the show for an hour down in Seattle. I felt guilty. It was when I decided I'm not going to do this anymore. Then they let me know how my listenership was. Well, I don't know if that was their way of dragging more money out of me. And I thought, I can't ask people to support, that much money. Trust me, I'd like support. Don't misunderstand me. I just felt guilty. Plus, I had to drive to Seattle to do it every Sunday. I thought, well, let's look at the internet. And so I started looking at the internet and I realized, man, this is a lot cheaper. So I bought the equipment and I've been doing this kind of thing for a long time now. This is the very first podcast that I set out to do on my own because for one reason and one reason only, to to meet people who are making a difference in the lives of other people and get away from all of the anti stuff to just be people that share a story. And I thought, well, okay, I'll do this. I'll convert this room in my home and we'll make it happen. And I'm not trying to teach anybody anything. I'm not trying to encourage. Well, I want to encourage people to be okay being people, but I'm not trying to pour something into your head. What I try to do is get people to just go back and look at what it's like today. They released the all of the documentation on the assassination of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King. That's been released today. And I'm thinking, yeah, President Trump released all this information. He declassified it all. And so for me, because I'm history driven, let's go back and see what the truth was. Well, I'm always challenging people to go back and see what's either been revised, what you've been lied to. That part of me, I'm always going to do because I'm a history fanatic. But to have somebody come on my show and just share their story, that's what Let's Talk About It is all about. And I want to give them the platform to just be the housewife who's got a problem, or the alcoholic who's recovered, or the child who's gone through a difficult thing. Give those people a voice if that's what this podcasting is all about. And that's kind of my heart to do this. But if you want to know a little bit about history, we can have that conversation too, because I love history.
I love history too.
I do.
And I love how history has kind of changed over the years. We're both old enough that we remember things, which is kind of interesting when you talk to people who don't really remember. And I have a good memory. Like something will happen today and people will be like, "Oh, this is a terrible thing." And it's like, well, we didn't get here in a vacuum. Hello. There was stuff that happened way back that led to this event that just like suddenly the cataclysm erupted.
It's funny because I can take a 16-year-old kid and ask them, what is a cassette? and they don't know. What is a track? Clueless. They have no concept of it. The same thing is true about history, unfortunately. I can ask a 16-year-old or 17-year-old, what do you know about the U.S. Constitution um, or anything? I mean, we can go all the way back to just the AIDS thing. They don't know how many people died. There's no,
Or who was involved in it,
yes, and hopefully
which
that'll be released.
circles back around to the thing that we just went through. Those were
Yeah,
connected, but people don't realize that they were very much connected,
they don't
which
realize that Fauci was there and here.
and here.
They don't get it. So, but then there's 16-year-old, and we're also, you and I'm sure we could say this, we're dealing with a whole different kind of generation of people. When you're under 20 years old, or even when you're under 30, it's kind of funny now. We're at this age where those who came before us, they know this already. I think about it. Let me throw this at you, Jill. 1980 was 45 years ago.
Such a golden age.
So, so if you go 45 years back from 1980, you're 1945.
Yep.
And I sit here, did I get the math right? I don't think I got the math right. But I mean, I think about that and I go, this thing moves so fast, so fast. If you don't take time to enjoy the goodness that life offers us, you're going to miss it. And I think the goodness that life offers us is almost always in the life of other people. I just do. I think, when you sit, I watch the videos of the service member coming home and surprising people,
I love
or
those.
or the person who puts on the colored glasses for the first time so they can see color.
Mhm.
I sit you can ask my wife, I can testify here. I sit down there watching these videos with tears pouring down my face because I love to see people experience the best part of life. Or when I've watched these shows with everybody's a singer, but I love to see people celebrated. And those ones of the soldiers coming home, that's instant tears for me. Instant tears for me. Or families being reunited, instant. I have to sit there with a box of Kleenex. My wife goes, "Will you turn that off?" Because I love to see people. I remember one particular one, this kid, he found the first car that his father got. He found it, had it restored, and gave it to his dad. The very first car his dad ever bought. And I remember that. I bubble over that because I love to see the goodness of people. Um, I mean, I just do. I just love to see the goodness in people, and particularly when it affects the lives of other people. I tell you, if I die tomorrow, I want to be remembered for that part of who I am because I think people are amazing. I really, really do mean that. I thought Hitler
Okay.
was amazing, but for all the wrong reasons. Okay, I mean he was. I mean, but he almost controlled the entire Europe, and as evil as what his motive was behind all of that, he almost accomplished something that would have been horrible for the whole world. I don't celebrate him, but it takes something to do that. And I think for all the wrong reasons. Well, on the other side of all of that is then there's the people who make the biggest difference, and we remember them because of what they did in the lives of other people for their benefit. I remember my mother said to me, you've manipulated me many times. She said, have you ever thought about manipulating people for their benefit? And I never forgot those words. I said, well, Mom, I guess what you're telling me is manipulation is a bad thing. He says, yeah, the way you use it. You can't manipulate your mother. But have you ever thought to do good for somebody else as opposed to what you're doing with me? She gave me a little speech about all that. Well, I never forgot it. You know, her comment was, be the bright spot in somebody else's life as opposed to trying to get what you want from somebody. Don't be a taker. I guess that was the bottom line. So I've learned how to not be a taker.
You're
Anyway,
definitely a giver, Jeff. Definitely a giver.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, but so are you. I mean, we go back about, gosh, I can't remember how long. I like how you use the word did you say devolve?
Deconverting.
Deconverting. Okay. Uh, for me, it just got nutty. I see those kinds of things as the ultimate form of division.
Yes, that's
I
how
do.
I felt. And I was feeling like I was getting trapped. And when I just pushed it all away and I felt this immediate release. And it's freedom. It's the freedom to think how I want, to be responsible, personal responsibility. I'm a big believer in that. But
Yep, me too.
the the movement was getting to the point of, everybody had to follow exactly certain standards, and if you deviated, then there was something wrong with you, and then there was all this infighting and among different factions of it. It just got to the point of like, who needs all this drama in their life? I thought this was supposed to bring me peace.
I, I, you, it wasn't just the uniformity, it was that they were all different. And if you weren't
Yes.
part of that difference, you were excommunicated. I was like, this is starting to feel like church
Yeah.
to the point to where I was like, I can't do this. I can't do
Yeah.
this.
It was
What
just
happened to me
crazy.
though, something happened to me when I was in Greece.
Mhm.
And I was walking down one of the ancient roads, and I began to see something about, based on what the tour guide was telling us.
Mhm.
I went, these people are these people were not different than us. I mean, I'm walking through cities that were made of marble. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, beautiful. And then they had the artist rendition of what it would look like at different
Mhm.
plaques and whatnot. I'm looking at it, I'm going, how did they do this? Jill, there was a sarcophagus there. I can't remember where I was. I think it was in Corinth, which was a it was broken, but it was part of a sarcophagus that a person would have been buried in. And I
Right.
rubbed my hand over the carvings on the marble. I'm going, this is as smooth as a baby's rear end. These people were amazing. And yet they had the wars and they were fighting and they had all kind. I went, human behavior doesn't change. What would happen if we just celebrated one another instead of killed one another? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's always the platitude that we're all after. But the fact of the matter is, especially here in Washington State, I got neighbors, people living next door to each other for 10 years and don't know each other. And I didn't grow up that way. But I thought those people in the ancient world, they're just like us. They just lived in a different time, but they had the same stuff. They had the same dislikes. I don't like that person. Well, that person, it was just, and I went, you know what? I'm no different than anyone that has come before me or anyone that's living next to me. And I just realized, what can we appreciate about one another first? And I've been that way for most of my, in fact, when I was a child, I grew up in the ghettos of upstate Rochester, New York. And I
Mhm.
learned about racial hatred from Black people. And I remember thinking as a 13, 12-year-old kid, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to grow up hating people because of some injustice that happened to somebody else. And I mean, I understand and acknowledge the injustices, but I can go
Right.
back 2,000 years and see the same kind of injustice. And I just didn't want to be that person.
Still going on. There's
Yes.
injustice everywhere.
Yep. Yep. I found when it comes to racial prejudice and stuff like that, I went, it's kind of like the same thing, Joe. When I decided that was not going to be a part of who I am,
Mhm.
you call me in the name of the book. My freedom doesn't allow that to mess with me because I'm free in my mind. I don't have to think that way. It's the same thing with my belief. I'm
Mhm.
free. I interviewed on my podcast a guy who's spent several years learning hypnotism,
Mhm.
and he did the both there. I went to one of his things, and I had the
Uh-huh.
freedom to say that's okay. And I'm learning about frequency healing and all kinds of things that are just amazing. And sure enough, a letter popped up or a notice popped up on Facebook. Well, this stuff is from the devil. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have to let that impact me anymore because the guy has helped so many people quit smoking. He's
Mhm.
helped so many people with anxiety. And I understand frequency. It's to me, it's like mind blowing. So I'm free to appreciate the things that are there, not what we've done to them to make them bad.
Yeah, we don't
That's a
even
Jeff
have to have
Morton.
an opinion about them. We could just
Right.
accept them for what they are. It's like so often people want to label things because they A, don't understand them, and B, unless they label it, they don't know where they stand on the situation. You don't have to stand anywhere. You can just let it be. People can have opinions and you may not agree with them, but you don't have to say anything. You have the freedom to keep your mouth shut sometimes.
You could be wrong a million ways, but the only person who doesn't know it is you. So
Yeah.
I, so, and I get in trouble sometimes because I'm pretty opinionated. And I sometimes I put my foot in my mouth. But there are absolutes about me that I'm
Mhm.
not going to change because it might be offensive to you. You're in my life, and I'm going to try to appreciate you for who you are and what you are. And I might say something stupid. I might say something really offensive. But when I realize it's really offensive, I'll be the first person to apologize. Okay. Um, but I like being who I am. And you can't step into my life and tell me that who I am is wrong. You can
Yes.
disagree with me, but you can't tell me that I'm wrong and that my life is wrong and that I'm wrong. And then disconnect from me. Because to me, it's like cutting your own. I used to tell people this. If it wasn't for the ability to watch other people walk, I would have never learned how to walk as a child.
Mhm.
And so I believe the best gift you get in life is almost always going to come from somebody else. And you're either going to hurt that situation or you're going to embrace that situation. I think people are the best teachers of one another. You just
Mhm.
have to allow it. There are some absolutes that I absolutely don't deal with, or or to be honest and to be completely transparent, I hate that word. Um, there are some biases that I have that probably aren't very healthy.
Mhm.
Um, but so is every human being that I come in contact with. You know what
Everybody does.
you know what I mean? So
And it's
sometimes
okay. We don't have to judge one another. We can just appreciate how we are and how they are and let it go. It, we
I
don't
agree
have to
with
have an
you.
opinion on it.
When you're hurting somebody or you're abusing somebody,
Mhm.
then you're going to get that kind of response. It's not going to be good.
Mhm.
But when you're celebrating somebody and helping, I find it this way. There's, there's when you do something really good for somebody,
Mhm.
the the way it flows is just magical. It's like watching a miracle happen in somebody's life. When you treat somebody's life horrible and you treat them bad and whatnot, it's just the opposite. You get to see the negativity that's been fostered. I talked to this person not too long ago, yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I said, a lot of the stuff you're talking about belongs to the person who inflicted this on you. It's not yours. You don't have to own it. But a lot of people own the abuse and the hurt. And I'm like, I told somebody, a pastor, a while ago, I said, you sit here and you talk about the abuse of this individual. And I said, you're telling me about his issue. And it affected you because you're owning his issue. Get rid of it. It doesn't belong to you. It was never you. And he pulled the truck over, tears coming down his eyes. Nobody's ever said that to me. I never really thought about it that way. And I think a lot of it sometimes, the abuse that we deal with, that's forced upon us or inflicted on us, it wasn't your problem, it was their problem. And you have to kind of distinguish how much of that you're going to be invested in. It's, again, we use the word freedom. When you're free from all that stuff, it just solidifies your individuality. And I think that's wonderful. When you get to be 65 years of age, people who don't know who they are at 65, certainly in our age group, that's a mystery to me. Because after all the experiences and whatnot, if you're not okay with yourself at 65,
they're not getting any better, honey.
Yeah, you missed the point. You missed the point. And the thing is when you appreciate people, the world is less impatient.
Yes.
And I in fact, I had some lady the other day. Was it yesterday or today? That's the other problem. I don't have your memory. She walked past me, great big smile on her face, and said hello, which is not common here in Washington State. Mm-hmm. And I just went, man, I missed that. Because that's how it was in New York. Everybody spoke to each other when I was growing up. Here, people walk past you. When they get close to you, they put their head down. And I've never been used to that. So she had this great big smile on her face. She said, how are you? And I said, fine, how are you? And we kept moving. And it just, somebody wrote this. This isn't from me, but he said, I was reading something, and I'm quoting, and I can't remember who it was. He said, a smile is a gift given to you, but meant for someone else. And I've never forgot that either. I think that's true. A smile is a gift given to you, but meant for someone else. I think I just have always thought that was profound. It might not be, but I thought it was profound. It stuck with me. I think it's
profound too. And I was going to ask you, what's the one thing you hope the audience takes away from our conversation today? I think that's it. Smile.
Yeah, I think if you want to be on my podcast, just kind of connect with me. My email address is jsmorton@protonmail.com. I would say that I love people. My heart is to love people. And my spirit is to love people. My soul is to love people. And I guess that's the best way to describe me. I'm not an African American. I'm an American citizen. I'm not racially motivated. Just appreciate people. If you look in the mirror, folks, what I tell myself, when I look in the mirror, I try to see my best friend, because the two of us have a lot to offer. And that's my final word on the whole thing.
I love that. And you can find out more about Jeff if you go over to freefromfear.us, and you can reach him at jsmorton@protonmail.com, and I'll put that information in the show notes. And again, his podcast is called Let's Talk About It. So look him up. He'd love to chat with you.
Appreciate you, Jill. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at The You World Order, or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.